Soy Trash.
Hello, welcome. This is the most disturbed podcast about Star Trek out there. Soy Trek, welcome to the bridge. My name is Britt.
And I am Pat.
How are we doing today?
Doing fan-friggin-tastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful day out today.
Yeah, I heard already because I already did a podcast with someone else in Providence earlier today.
What? Who?
Ricka Rud! It's our other podcast on the Dumb Idiot Bullshit Podcast Network, and that's Prison Breakdown.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of patrons...
Your brother's right, my neighbor, basically.
Yeah, basically, and the other host lives kind of somewhere around there, too. It's, not too far away. It's a 45-minute northeastern drive.
Yeah.
It's
just nothing out here. Like it's interesting how like everyone complains about like the traffic out here, but compared to Seattle, it's literally nothing. Like,
it's the traffic isn't as bad, but like the commutes I feel like out there are longer. Like everything's a lot more like depending on where you're at. Like the big cities are a lot more like kind of I don't know how to put it. But like everything's a little less centralized in the Northeast. Like there's a lot like bigger suburbs than out here, whereas like everything's one contiguous city that you can like walk through. Whereas like you have to drive in the Northeast for the most part, unless you're like in a big city. Like
there's like the public transportation isn't as thorough as Seattle.
Right.
Like I can't just like pop on a light rail or anything and go to different parts of the city, but but yeah, like just driving anywhere, it's I can do like a 45-minute commute that's like 30 miles long, whereas it's like when I was commuting like less than 20 miles, it took me an hour and a half.
right and it depends though too, because there's some things that are super reliable there. Like the trains are pretty great out there. They're a lot better than here, and they have a lot more like, I mean, you can go like town to town to town on the train there and like basically like navigate your way through with a train and a bus system, which isn't too bad. It just like kind of takes a lot longer than here, whereas like light rail to bus is like seamless here. So, I don't know.
Definitely like that. Yeah, if I didn't feel like taking a car, I could just be like, I'm gonna light rail somewhere today.
Yeah. So, speaking of other podcasts on the Dumb Idiot Bullshit Podcast Network, on which we are, we got a Patreon. Did you know that? It's at patreon.com/dumbidiotbs. So if you like this show, if you feel like supporting us, keeping us ad-free and editorially independent and able to say whatever the fuck we want about whatever the fuck we want, maybe throw us a couple bucks. For as little as $2 a month, you can help support us do that. And for as little as $5 a month, we say thank you and shout your name out to the gods, to people just like Dylan Lance, Jordan Hale, Elizabeth Hearn, Nick Savard, Shane Sawyer, David Craning Seitz, Electric Baphomet, Gursky, Jormore, Kyle Simmons, Gillian McCrary, SFC Punk, 7 of 9, D. Riker, Ethan Adams, James Hartman, Iggy, Abigail Simpson, Shane Williams, Sam Mayo, Seb, Robert Yolito, Asher Pliskin, Skeptic, Papa Poison, Awful Star Trek Drawings, Jose Martinez, Nova, Gabe Siciliano, A Big Strong Boy, Vinny, Luna Dahlia, Former Twink, Nathan G, DJ Robinson, Phil McCavity, Danny Locke Finale, Anthony Cabrera, and our good friends over at the Hate Speech Podcast, the Bruce Campbell Podcast, and Anamorphin Time. Yeah. Also on our Patreon, you can get access to my media server,
The Media Dungeon,
which is a server I have set up right here at my computer with approximately 118 terabytes full of movies and television shows, over 19,000 films. That's as many as every single streaming service combined. Every single one combined.
Every single one.
Every single one, unless you count the movies you can buy on Amazon, because there's only a couple thousand you can watch for free, but you can buy up to like 30,000 films on there. They put fucking every piece of trash that's digitalized on there. So,
yeah, I think I one time I accidentally got tricked into watching some weird alt-right documentary on Amazon. Like,
what do you mean you got tricked? Like you bought it, or you just how'd you get tricked into this?
It was free. But like it was like something called like the Red Pill or something, and I thought, and it kind of like advertised itself as like almost like a documentary about like red pill incels type thing.
Sure.
And I was just like, yeah, whatever, and I just had it on in the background while I was baking one day, and then I started paying more attention to it, and I realized that it's actually like a pro red pill incel movie directed by a woman who gets red pilled at the end. And
Wild.
she's just like, yeah, she's talking to some guy who's like missing teeth and vaping and being and talking about how like fathers typically lose rights in custody cases, and then like he's like, and then the woman, she's like, she's out getting railed by a dude hanging out the window, and like the woman who's supposed to be like,
this sounds very specific guy.
Yeah, who started off being like the impartial documentarian that just was just like very naive and through the course of the movie was red pilled by all these like compelling thought geniuses she spoke to, like this guy.
Yeah, this sounds like the tale of the Red Scare podcast.
I know. Yeah, I gotta look up who that person was. But yeah, it was funny. Like he's saying this completely ridiculous thing about like, a dad losing custody while the mom's getting like, hanging out the window, getting railed, and she's just like nodding along, like yes.
Yeah, that sounds like an embellishment to something. I don't know.
It was a very fascinating thing. But yeah, it was totally free on Amazon. I was just like, well, that's something. But yeah, I did kind of feel like I was tricked by how it was advertised.
Yeah, that's they'll do that to you,
Yeah,
try to trap you like that. You got tricked. They tricked you.
I got tricked.
So we are. Oh yeah. Finish my Patreon spiel here. Also, if you want to help support us, like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. And listen to our other shows. That includes Getting Head of Bucket Cast, Prison Breakdown, The Media Dungeon, Dumb Idiot Bullshit, and My Wife. And of course, this podcast, Soy Trek. So, patreon.com/dumbidiotbs. See you there. Love you.
Or be square.
Yeah, definitely. Be square. So today we are here to talk about something that our patrons voted us to watch. We are here to talk about Measure of a Man. What does Measure of a Man mean to you, besides getting out the old yardstick and seeing how big your penis is?
Well, to me, this has also felt like a huge palate cleanser after, this is the first thing we return to after the final season of Discovery.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where it really like encapsulates and Star Trek as a whole. And also I was like, doing some research, and I didn't realize that this is actually the first episode to feature poker.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
I guess it makes sense. It's like the beginning of season 2 when it's finally starts to like find its footing and figure stuff out.
And the way it started was just like very interesting because like the initial way they're going to introduce like Data's like kind of like unfamiliarity with like some things, in this it's like it's supposed to be poker. He's kind of like befuddled by the fact that that there's rules outside of the standard rules of poker that include bluffing and and just like and something that he doesn't understand. Initially it was going to be swimming. Like he was going to be in a swimming pool, and they realized they couldn't figure out how to pull that off without all the body makeup, just basically because they were got to cover his entire body in in yellow paint, and they couldn't figure out how to keep that on him and make it waterproof. Yeah. And so then like the writer of the episode actually then suggested poker, which then became like something that's hugely associated with TNG.
Not just TNG,
but
remember the very final scene of Picard season 3 and of the series itself is them playing poker.
Yep. Yeah. It became like vital to the entire premise, and to Next Generation. I think that's pretty fascinating, and it's also funny, like, I guess also Gene Roddenberry also hated the idea of this episode initially and tried to get it scrapped. Because also this shows, like, how kind of stupid Gene Roddenberry is sometimes. Yeah. Where he's just like, he didn't think there would be lawyers in the future. And this is also, I feel like, one of the first major, like, courtroom episodes that we have that that also have become like a standard practice in Star Trek. We love our courtroom episodes, and and Gene Roddenberry was saying like that lawyers wouldn't exist in the future, which based, but like also definitely like obviously like the things would still have to be argued or
and adjudicated,
especially with the expansion of like new things, and specifically like this is like something that's not covered by any Starfleet regulation, right. And so of course like you would need to have this argued in
it's interesting they didn't think this through though, or have something to deal with this ahead of time, like knowing that like AI is on the horizon and that eventually like a super advanced being could be created. Like we know that now, like 250 years before this. I don't know. So it shows a little like, and there's some like technical stats in here that show a lack of forethought into the future, I think, that we'll get into the episode. But it's interesting. But let's talk about the production a little bit. So this is the Measure of a Man is the second season, 9th episode of it, of Star Trek The Next Generation. It first aired on February 13th, 1989. It's the 34th episode of TNG, both produced and released. And it's the 140th episode overall of Star Trek. This one is written by Melinda M. Snodgrass, who's the writer of 5 episodes of TNG, including Up the Long Ladder, The Ensigns of Command, and Pen Pals, all pretty good episodes. And directed by Robert Shearer, who did 11 episodes of TNG, including Legacy, The Outcast, and Chain of Command Part 1, as well as DS9 Shadowplay, Voyager's State of Flux, and Rise. So pretty solid, pretty solid team here, definitely. So we start out with the captain's log. Captain's log, stardate 42523.7. We are en route to newly established starbase 173 for port call. Crew rotation is scheduled, and we will be offloading experimental modules. We enter the poker room, and we've got O'Brien, Riker, Data, Geordi, and Pulaski there. Data waxes on how poker is simple, and there's just a set of rules that you have to follow, and like statistically and mathematically, you can figure out what basically everyone has. Geordi says there's way more to it than that. One by one, the players drop out and fold due to the growing pot until it's just Data and Riker. Riker appears to maybe have a flush, but Data has queens and aces full house. Data's clearly got it. But Data folds because Riker keeps on raising. Riker had nothing. He bluffed the motherfuck out of Data. Pulaski calls it instinct, and Data is like befuddled as fuck. He's like, well, what'd you do to me? Next we see Picard sitting, drinking some tea in a lounge. I'm not sure if it's 10 forward or just like a nameless lounge, because it's got like 2 decks. It's weird.
Yeah, it's on the starbase. Yeah, you see like the Enterprise in the distance.
Oh, I didn't know they were on the starbase. Okay. I didn't know they were there yet. Okay, so someone comes into the lounge, and Picard says, "My God," to himself, like he's about to bust. It's pretty cool. He walks over to her, and some sentimental music plays. It's Philippa Lavoie, who he hasn't seen in 10 years, and they flirting hard. Picard gonna snatch that pussy.
I do like how they constantly go between like flirting very hard and then also
hating each other,
just like
hating each other.
Yeah, just straight up hating each other.
You know they
like,
have crazy sex though, like crazy sex. Like it's gotta be like, you know.
Yeah. Like I sense more violence coming from Picard than towards most of the main villains from any of the.
Yeah, there's a pretty good reason for it though. I mean, he has personal history with her. We'll get into that though. So
yeah, and she's a lawyer.
Yeah, she is. So we got opening credits at about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Strong cold open, established a lot about character and Data, and it introduced poker. Maybe one of the strongest cold opens in Star Trek. Very strong.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
So, Picard asks Philippa what she's doing in Enterprise at the office, and she says she's in charge of the local JAG office, which sounds like Jack office. Yeah, every time they said JAG office, I'm like, JAG off. Which I want to work there.
See, I think if like Paramount and stuff were like brave, they would give us just a Star Trek JAG series.
Oh, that would be so good.
Like
that would actually be good. That'd be a good procedural. Like I would watch that law procedural 100%. Especially, I mean, if God, who would be a good lawyer in it though? I mean, like Picard's too old now. He would have been great though. That would have been a great retirement for him, is like just like being like Matlock and just taking special cases, you know.
I mean, yeah, it could take place like, I mean, we could have like Picard show up, you know. It could take place, after the events of like Picard season 3, and we can have like a whole new brand new cast of people, and then it can just be like them arguing, like different things that come up, different court cases, and of course we can also have the spinoff, Star Trek SVU and all that stuff.
I don't think I would like that at all. That would just basically be like borderline like tentacle porn, I think, and I don't.
Yeah, I think then we would actually see like some of our faves, like Riker actually like face some jail time or something.
Riker's not problematic. He's a good guy. He's a Chad. He's a proper man. He likes to dig down. He's a man who likes to dig down. So Picard chastises Philippa for prosecuting him in the past. They are no longer flirting. Picard perhaps not going to snatch that pussy. She says it's good to see Picard again, and he's still a pompous ass, but a damn sexy man. Okay, maybe he is going to snatch that pussy. We'll see.
He is.
We'll see. Like, no matter what, she wants to fuck him. She's like, yeah, I don't know. She's the he's like the ultimate man she would choose to fuck and fuck, marry, kill, you know? Yeah.
But we also have to remember, like, at this point, canonically, Picard is still not over his mother's suicide. And
that's right. So he can't move on yet and get with Laris. Or was it? No. Was it? Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. It was Laris because it was a second season. Yeah.
But Laris, that whole thing was never. Laris didn't even return.
No. She was good. Then, she was out after the first episode. She's like, bye bye. I'm on a diplomatic mission. I think. I don't know. But they just wrote me out.
Yep.
So, an admiral approaches Picard and presents Commander Bruce Maddox, who has a proposal for Picard. Picard takes the admiral and Maddox to the bridge and gives them a tour. Suddenly, Maddox announces he's there to work on Data. Maddox formerly knew Data and was the sole voice of dissension for letting him into Starfleet Academy. So he's already been kind of a dick to Data. Like, this guy.
He's the only person more racist than Pulaski on the ship right now.
But I think, like, this is... right. Do you think anyone else on the ship could be racist? Actually, you know what? No.
Really.
I mean, O'Brien becomes a pretty big Cardassian racist. I think he might qualify as biggest racist, but like not on the ship right now. I don't think they've encountered the Cardassians until like season 4 or something.
No, and Pulaski, I think also Pulaski begrudgingly
accepts Data.
Terms,
she
accepts Data.
Yeah, she turns around, but Bruce Maddox and with Maddox,
too. Especially with like Picard season 1, we kind of see that he still achieves his dream of creating a slave race,
right?
And so we can kind of assume that he never really like grows as a person.
No, because
he gets his slaves, he makes his slaves.
They just, I think the way they produced that season was they just Googled like best TNG villains. And then they're like, "Oh fuck, Bruce Maddox! Get that guy? Is he still alive?" And they got him, and they're like, "Yeah, all right." Wait, how are we gonna write this?
Well,
so he didn't grow at all.
They recast him with the guy from the Nutty Professor.
Oh, was it a different guy?
Yeah, it was a different guy. It was the guy who goes, "This is some Freddy Krueger shit, man," from the Nutty Professor.
I don't know who you're talking about.
No, he was Professor Clump's lab assistant.
Oh, okay. I vaguely remember. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I mostly only watch Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps. I'm not a big fan of the first. Of course,
then like the off-brand Clumps.
Meet the Family.
Meet the Family. Yeah.
With the what are they called?
On Thanksgiving.
The Crumps or something like that. Yeah, it was really, really, really bad. But I'm glad we all watched it together on Thanksgiving. That was actually very fun. It was fun subjecting you all to that movie.
But I will say, Bruce Maddox is definitely, I think, the kind of villain that really like flourishes in Star Trek, and then like is also a very memorable villain.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, of course, like this is coming after, of course, our final watch of Discovery, and like, we had 10 episodes with Maul and Locke, and in one episode we have like an actual villain that has some material threat to our crew, and who acts within the system he's in. But he's still malicious, unstoppable, and he's sort of like this lawful evil type dude who kind of is driven by some parts like admiration and also jealousy, and and he seeks to like control and dominate Data and make it his own and basically take credit. And I think he comes off as a far more effective villain than anything we saw in like more modern Trek, because he's a memorable villain.
Right. I mean, I remember Maul and Locke's names, but that's only because that's all they ever talked
that's
about.
All they ever said.
Yeah.
But yeah, and really, like, Bruce Maddox doesn't do much talking in this at all either. Like,
no, it's interesting. He like gives very little information. He doesn't have a whole lot of like outbursts or anything. Oh.
Yeah, because he mostly just represents this idea of this kind of like what it's more of what he represents, which is like this racism, slavery. That's kind of what he's, and this sort of othering, and kind of also this like kind of like a backwards throwback to the way we were, and not more of like really like embracing the ideals of the Federation as a whole. This seeking out new life and be open-minded to what we find that is completely alien to us, and he's really just giving this very conservative outlook on Data and who he is.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like he is such like a complex villain with like very very sparse like introduction or like backstory to him, which is something you don't see very often. Like I can think of a few others. Like I really like in Year of Hell, the Voyager episodes, like the guy played by Kurtwood Smith, forget his name, but he's like incredibly memorable just as like a character, because like his motives are so interesting, and he's like just trying to bring his wife back and his civilization back, but like no matter how good it gets, as long as he doesn't have his wife, it's not good enough. And so he's like kind of driven to madness by this like deep kind of morally complex and understandable obsession. And it's like this guy's obsession is like understandable. Maddox's like obsession with Data, making it his life's work to try to recreate Data. Like if you met something like Data, you would be fascinated too, And if you were like, if I was smart enough, I'd be like, fucking, hey, I should like look more into that. But I'm no programmer. I'm no robot maker. I'm not a robots person. So
it is kind of like also like the like a lot of people accuse like the Federation of is like this idea, it's a very imperialistic and just like absorbing ideas and then like making it their own and stuff like that. And that's another thing like Maddox represents, just instead of like embracing Data and his uniqueness, and he only cares about like reproducing on a mass scale and making a cheap labor force, disposable labor force out of it, and I think that is like he is an effective villain, who's also without saying too much, like. And again, like also he doesn't have to say too much because like we'll get into it, but like actions he does and how he treats Data and his personhood kind of just reflects, just like this can be extrapolated to the civil rights era in America. So I think that's why it's like such a relatable type episode where it's like, it's not too long ago, like people actually had to fight for their personhood in the United States, and people still are, trans people,
absolutely,
and just the right to exist.
Oh yeah, the right to exist, the right to your own body and your own personhood. Like even with the fucking Dobbs, fucking women don't have a right to their own personhood and body now. It's under attack, and
their possessions, and which is like they're and Maddox is trying to possess Data in that kind of same way.
Anyway, so Picard takes the Admiral and Maddox to the bridge. Have I already done that? No. So Maddox announces he's going to disassemble Data. That's his mission. That's why he's there. So in the meeting room, Maddox says he's fascinated with Nooney and Soong's work and wants to disassemble Data so he can study him. Data is intrigued, and Maddox says he's going to disassemble him and dump his core memory into the computer. Data asks about a necessary process that can't be explained yet, and Maddox says he'll figure it out, which gives Data little faith in his abilities. Data says Maddox's basic research lacks the specifics to perform the experiment, which is a sick fucking burn. Like, he fucking got him, which is probably why Maddox gets so pissed and, like, goes so hard on this.
Because you can definitely see, like, Maddox definitely does, during this meeting, like, I do like how they do it where Maddox barely looks at Data and never addresses him directly until Data is, like, basically, like, standing in front of him talking.
He refers to Data
asking questions.
Yeah, he refers to Data as it, like, pretty much the entire episode. And Picard agrees with Data here. Maddox, though, has orders from Starfleet Command to transfer Data to him in order to do the experiment. Picard sits in his ready room when Data enters and inquires why human rights are not afforded to him, and deduces it's because he's not human. Picard pulls up the files on regulations of transfer of officers. He's going to do some reading, figure this shit out. So, Picard enters a room and Philip is there. He asks for her help. He calls the regulations gobbledygook as though he's not a Starfleet captain, because he should know Starfleet regulations probably, especially as a captain who's transferred people before. I'd expect he'd know the rules, but that's just me.
Yeah, and like, and that's one thing I think is funny. It's just like the fact that he seems to have very little grasp of the law, but he's still, like, tasked with being like the Data's defendant, right? In this case,
right? It's great.
Like, well, you're the best we got. Like, I kind of feel if this, I know, like, captains are supposed to fulfill many roles. They can, marry people, all this stuff, and and of course now they're expected to also, like, argue at the level of a lawyer for very serious civil rights cases. So it's just like, you would think, like, the Enterprise would just have someone on the ship who that was their sole job. Just like, especially, like, you would think, like, having, like, a law expert, Federation law expert on the ship would also, like, would come in handy, especially in kind of cases with first contact or meeting with hostile species, or like if a species accuses the Federation of doing something,
right,
have some sort of, like, lawyer there to represent the best interest.
That's a very good point. It's strange, that they don't have in a future that does have, like, litigation. It's weird that, like, an entire ass starship with a complement of, like, 1,000 people wouldn't have, like, one person who knows law on it.
Like, there wouldn't have to be, like, and then I used to have two, just so, like, because I mean, there is a lot of conflict of interest, especially as before they get Riker to prosecute the case, someone who has a very personal relationship with Data and thinks of him as a friend, and you would think, like, that would be a detriment to, like you think Maddox would argue against that. Because he's you think Maddox would want the best possible person to represent his interest in this, which is to argue for the full disassimilation of Data and, like, and get what he wants, instead of, like, okay, well, I'm going to enlist the robot's best friend,
right?
Well, one of the robot's best friends to represent to represent my interests. Like, that's not going to blow up in my face.
No,
you think they would have some sort of like impartial people that are on the ship that could easily fill into these roles.
Right.
As prosecutor and defendant.
We'll talk about that though. Picard tells Philippa he needs help to help Data. She makes fun of him, but he's serious as fuck. Data has the option, however, to resign. Philippa says she can help him, but she's incapable of trusting him. Alone in a room, Data looks at a hologram of Tasha Yar and packs it in his belongings along with his medals. Like, yo, dog, you fucked a drunk girl once. Like, and she didn't want to talk about it ever again and said it didn't happen. And suddenly you're carrying around her hologram, man. Like, dog, that's pathetic. Imagine fucking.
It's his first time.
Imagine like Riker like having to pack all his treasures. Like, he'd just be like have like 6 duffel bags. That he has to transport, and they're just like all full of just panties.
Well, that's kind of like the difference. I mean, I think like, obviously Riker, he's probably not that sentimental. I bet he does have like that's sort of like RoboCop type vision whenever he sees like a past paramour or something. Right? he can easily like recall like last time they hung out. I think he definitely has that. But as for keeping like physical mementos, I don't think Riker's that kind of dude. But I could see, this is like, it's more special to Data. Like this is, it's also like something that was like, what humans do, and that's like, having intimate relations with someone is like a human behavior, and it's just like that was like, memento from not only his romantic encounter, but also like something that a step that he took to being human, and that was like the second episode.
yeah, for sure.
They just jumped the gun with that.
Oh yeah, they jumped the shark with that. So Bruce Maddox enters Data's room and starts reading a book. He quotes from it and asks if it means something to Data. Data asks, "Yo, don't you fucking knock, dog?" Maddox totally.
Yeah, I love the. Yeah. I just love that, because it's like, just like a complete disregard for Data's privacy, and he doesn't feel like he even needs to, because Data's not a person to him. It's just like a thing.
Like what's he gonna be doing in his room that like he's gonna be like disrupting? Like, he doesn't know Data fucks. He doesn't know he's fully. How does he not know? He's been studying him all his life, and he doesn't know that he's fully functional and programmed in multiple techniques. He doesn't know that. we all know that. The viewer knows that. I don't think anyone on the ship knows that, though.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he's definitely a guy who just pays attention to like just the schematics of Data, and it, like, Data's personality is completely secondary to him, and possibly not a non-issue to him, where he doesn't even think it's important, because he's just like he just completely disregards that aspect of Data completely.
He disregards a lot of aspects of Data.
Into his room.
Wow. Yeah. Like any aspect that's like inconvenient for him to like disassemble him like surgically and maybe be able to reassemble him. Like, he just has no value or regard for his life. He only has value for his value and his function, which is, I don't know.
Yeah, fucked. His strive for relevancy, like to recreate the works of Noonien Soong, and also like he needs that sort of like clinical distance to also carry out what he does, and him just like completely being like the Data expert, but ignoring like his personality and just like and who he is as a sentient creature is inconvenient for him to do what he needs to do, which is create like the slave race.
Yeah. So Maddox disregards Data telling him to knock, and Data tells him that he's not going with him because he resigned from fucking Starfleet. Maddox is incensed and tells Data that one way or another he's coming with him. You get another captain's log. Captain's log supplemental. Commander Bruce Maddox, having been thwarted by Data's abrupt resignation, is now seeking a legal remedy for his woes. Captain Lavoie has requested my presence at those discussions. In a room with Maddox and Philippa, Maddox says Picard is being too emotional and Data is not human. Picard says Data is an outstanding bridge officer, but Maddox says he can make a Data for every ship. Maddox says Data cannot be permitted to resign. Picard mentions Data's rights, and Maddox asks what about his right to complete his life's work, which is definitely not a right that exists anywhere. Like, just because he wants to do something isn't like he doesn't have a right to do it, especially if it harms another being, whether sentient or not. Like, honestly, if this was an animal, it would be fucked up. Like, come on.
Yeah. This is supposed to be like a throwback to a darker age almost, where it's just like, especially it's like, definitely goes against the entire principles of the Federation, which is to respect, to seek out new life, and to respect like their customs and everything else. So they're just like looking to strip Data for parts and resources instead of like instead of respect anything about him. And
right.
Yeah, Maddox is a bad dude.
A real bad dude. And also, couldn't you study a lot of him while he's still operational? I feel like you might be.
Yeah, you'd think that would.
Yeah, you think, but whatever.
Yeah, that would yield greater results.
Right, because he's like actually operational. You can learn a lot more about a live animal by observing it for a long time than you can by just finding its skeleton. So Picard says Starfleet does not need to allow Data's resignation and he should be able to resign on his own. But Maddox says Data is property, which is pretty fuck. Come on, Maddox.
Whoa.
Yeah, so Data is busy opening presents for his goodbye party, and Geordi is depressed. Data goes over and talks to him, and Geordi says, "Yo, this shit ain't fair, dog." Data says he'll miss Geordi, and Geordi's like, "Yeah, me too." And then he like puts his hands on his shoulders. This would have been a good moment for something a little more emotional, like Geordi saying like, "I'm going to miss you too," instead of like, "Yeah, me too." And maybe like a hug would have been like humanizing to Data in a big way.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Geordi was probably kind of restrained at this point because he knew like, Data wouldn't fully grasp like what he's feeling in a way, but because you definitely feel like, Geordi is like holding back a bit, like he's trying to put on a brave face for like, especially since like it's at like a party and he's feeling like the absence of Data a lot harder than everyone else because they're best friends, even though like, the movies and Picard season, the Picard TV show would have you think like it was not that way. It was Data and Picard. But yeah, I mean, Geordi and Data were, the best friends.
They were, but kind of in later seasons, especially since Geordi didn't take over as chief engineer until season 2. So he was more on the bridge and stuff, and not as they didn't have as many alone moments really. So, in a room, Picard and Riker speak with Philippa, who finds Data to be property of Starfleet and unable to resign or refuse to go with Maddox. Picard is pissed and asks what happens if he challenges that ruling. She says she'll have to hold a hearing, and Picard says, then fucking do it now. She says she can use officers as counsel, and it has to be Picard and Riker as defense and prosecution, respectively. Riker protests because he's Data's friend and says he won't do it. Philippa says, in that case, my ruling stands, and calls Data a fucking toaster. Which I was like, whoa, yo, lady, come on. So Riker is forced into it.
And it's interesting, like, I mean, if Picard had known more about the law at this point, like, he could ask her to recuse herself as judge, given like her already built-in prejudice against Data.
And Picard, because she prosecuted him before.
Yeah, against Picard, and also also their personal relationship. So yeah, I mean, I will say, this is
they've probably fucked before. Yeah, and if they haven't fucked, like, there's definitely something going on there, and she should be like, this might be a conflict of interest. The fucking defense attorney is a guy I really want to bone, like, lady.
It would be interesting to have like an actual lawyer's like takes on like a lot of the Star Trek courtroom episodes, and be like, they could just be like,
that's the nice thing though, is like, there's no established law here. This is Federation law, not US law. You know, you could get a take on it.
It's like almost frontier law in a sense, because like they're doing this basically at that outpost, and they're basically deciding this is like a major landmark case. And also it was interesting, there was no like, you know, space press or anything, you know, like, you know, it's like, this is like basically deciding a major thing that, you know, later like opened up like, you know, room for like the exocomps, for example, to be granted their sort of like sentience in a way. And
sure,
it never didn't seem to really extend to like the slaves that that Maddox makes later in Picard season 1, you know, fates and stuff.
And it really doesn't. Like, everyone, that precedent doesn't seem to have stood for that long.
Yeah, but also, like, it's interesting that she wasn't made to asked to recuse herself and have someone else take over. Or, you know, if that's serious, you know, you could, you know, that given that they are kind of isolated at this point when this is taking place, so it's just like, well, you know, they dealt with the best they could, you know, having to use, you know, Picard, Riker, and herself, but it's just like, you know, let's maybe see like this is like an entire bed of conflicting interests, and maybe we should take a pause and to make sure Data actually gets, you know, a fair shake at this.
Right. Yeah, you'd think, but you know, it's, as you said, frontier law, limited resources, and also this is very much a bottle episode, so they wanted to save a lot of budget on this. So in his room, Picard calls Data in and tells Data about the ruling of the trial. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to say. With no choice, Riker agrees to be the prosecution. And Philippa says that if he bombs the trial on purpose, her ruling will stand. Which, you know, so he's got to do a good job, this Riker. So in his room,
also, it's just like, I mean, how can she really know? I mean, there's a lot of subtle ways you could do that, you know, and it's just like, she doesn't know Riker, she knows Picard. But it's just like, you know, who's to say Riker's not going to give it his all or not, you know? I mean, she's not doing her own independent research. Like, there could be like some massive thing he chooses to exclude.
Or and like, then, like, he could really suck at the law. Like, he could have gotten to where he is by being like a really good pilot and like good in battle and stuff. Like, he could like bomb the trial on accident just because he's dumb. Like, she doesn't know him at all.
He came up through catering services. He was in the catering services.
I'm a commander of replicator repair. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good union job.
He was the chef on his last ship. And then
or what was Neelix, like the entertainment coordinator or whatever that job is.
He'd actually gotten some sort of like massive field promotion because like all these people got taken out on his ship, and, and he got a field promotion to commander, and they're like, all right, well, you want to go to the Enterprise next? He's like, yes.
Well, now you're a lawyer. Now you're a lawyer. I know read good. So
all he knows is like making creme anglaise, making you know, and smashing puss.
I mean,
let's
be honest. He does have big time like line cook / now he has big chef energy, like big time. Like watching him make pizza in Picard, I was like natural.
Yeah, he definitely has that line cook energy. He also the line cook horniness. So,
definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's probably why I still look like a line cook, even though I haven't worked in a kitchen in 10 years.
Yeah, Riker's your twin flame.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, we are indeed. But both Alaskans, so.
Mm-hmm.
So,
both Alaskans.
In his room, Picard calls Data in and tells Data about the ruling in the trial. Picard says he will defend Data and asks if there's anyone else he'd prefer, which I'm like, wait a second. Riker didn't have a choice, but Data has a choice and a lawyer? I don't why shouldn't Maddox have a choice and a lawyer then? I don't know. This seems kind of unfair. Why couldn't Maddox be like, I want to choose Picard? Yeah, right? And then... But yeah, exactly. So, he asked this question though, as though he's not the best fucking space lawyer ever. Like, listen to him. Like, he belongs on a lawyer show. And Data's like, "No, dog, you're the best fucking space lawyer in history. You're my lawyer." Good call, Data. Mm-hmm. So with Riker, he starts researching Data, bringing up his technical schematics, if you know what I mean. And he knows exactly what his dick looks like, if you know what I mean. And he looks concerned.
And he's asking the computer, how far can it stretch? Wider. Damn,
that thing like a Stretch Armstrong leg.
I can get both fists up there. That's when he gets really excited because there's a point where he like sees something. He sees something that'll help out his case, and he gets really excited at first, and he gets kind of sad. That's probably like he saw it's like gate capacity and got really stoked, and it was just like but I still got to prosecute him.
Yeah. You think Data? I feel like Data would not have a butthole. I don't think he knows what fully functional means. I don't think he has a butthole. I think Noonien Soong was never got into butt pleasure at all, and so he's like, well, why would Data need a butthole? He doesn't consider the prostate.
Well, I think he did try to make Data in his own image, and that includes buttholes. I think he would have.
No, I think he was like so straight that he's like, well, why do you need a butthole if you don't take a poop?
That's true. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something to ask Data. If we ever meet Brent Spiner again, we can be like, answer this question right now.
Does Data have a butthole? Tell me. No, I won't leave your car.
I'm gonna say
I won't leave your car.
I'm gonna say yes.
No.
I think Noonien Soong was like open-minded enough, and he didn't want to impose any sort of like heteronormativity on Data, and he wanted to give Data, and that's part of like being human, the right to choose.
I think he programmed Data to be straight. I think he programmed him to be heterosexual. I don't know. I'm just saying.
You can still get butt stuff and being straight.
Yeah, I know. But I don't think he left him like super open-minded to like explore and that kind of thing in that way.
Yeah.
No. I wish Data was bisexual, but I don't think he is. So, the trial begins. Riker opens. He calls Data to the stand. Riker asks what Data is, and Data says he's an android and gives the dictionary definition. Oddly from like 200 years ago. He says Noonien Soong built him, who is a human. He gives his processing power and storage, which is about 2 RTX 3090 graphics cards, which are like 4 years old, and about 1,000 terabytes of storage, which is approximately like a third of my computer's processing power and an eighth of the media storage. Data could store roughly less than 8 of the Media Dungeon server.
Well, at that point when this was made, that was like, it's kind of like when they in old movies and stuff, they load some some like world-ending like super virus on a floppy disk.
Right.
It's just like it says was like 320 kilobytes or something. So it's just like
I mean, like, but at the same time, like most of those didn't take place 250 years in the future. Most of them took place in like the 90s and shit. So
I mean, they're thinking big from where they were.
Yeah. So Riker has data bend steal, which home computers can't do. And he asks Data to remove his hand, and he takes Data's hands off with ease, which is strange, being that he's like seemingly very sturdily constructed, being that he can like bend steel, but apparently he can just like detach his arm, which, if you're fighting Data, that's a good thing to know, is you can just like pull the arm off.
Well, I think it's like, he knew where to hold and how to push in because he had been researching Data, so he knew there's probably some like discrete buttons or something on his
discrete buttons. I know what you mean.
Discrete buttons.
The erogenous zones, I believe they call
Data's
them.
Actual prostate is. Since he doesn't have
yeah, not every species has their genitals in the same place. Sometimes it's on the knee. Sometimes it's on the arm there. That'd be great if Riker takes off his arm and Data's like, and just like has a big fucking cum. He's like, I didn't know I could do that.
At the end of the arm stump, there's just like a red pulsating balloon. He just starts flicking it, and Dave's like, "Oh,
that's
disconnect the Wi-Fi.
That's Data's clit right there.
Disconnect the Wi-Fi. Disconnect the Wi-Fi."
Riker calls Data the physical representation of a dream, the dream of a man. He gives a brief speech, and then he says, and now a man will shut him off. And he shuts Data off. It's fucked up, man. Then he says, Pinocchio's broken. His strings have been cut. Like, yo, dude, what the fuck? If they find in Data's favor, you just legitimately assaulted a coworker in a courtroom. That's like, you're canceled, brother. You're canceled, Riker. Picard calls for a recess.
You're canceled, Riker.
Canceled, Riker.
Yeah, like, even though like his personhood hasn't been like legally recognized yet, like he could have at least asked, but I guess that would like hurt his case if he was seen like asking permission or consent to do this to him.
Right.
But still, it's just like, I mean, his legal rights are in flux, which also, like, I feel the moment he became a citizen of the Federation, it should have been, like, guaranteed right from the get-go.
Right, and especially, like a member of Starfleet should have given him, like, citizenship to the Federation, right? Like,
yeah, and all the protections that are included within, and it's just like, so yeah, just like, even if you're trying to argue against it at this point, he still has, those, whatever rights are afforded to him by the Federation. Yeah. But I get, it's like dramatic television to have, Riker just be a fucking dick to him.
Right. And also, it's dramatic television to have this only come up now instead of like 100 years ago, or like at any point when Data existed before, because Data's already been in the, around for like 20 years, 30 years now or something like that. Like, he's, he's not a new concept, and he's been like a known factor, and he got accepted into Starfleet through like a vote, even though he, is not like technically like a sentient being to their standard exactly at this point, but it's like no matter what, like, he should have some rights afforded to him as a member of Starfleet, as a member of this crew. I don't know, it's kind of fucked up, man. It's kind of fucked up. And like, I mean, like, allowing him into Starfleet in the first place like should give him like an agency and a personhood in a way, because they don't allow computers, like the ship's computers, into Starfleet no matter how powerful they are, no. So I don't know. It's weird.
Moriarty didn't have those rights.
No, definitely not. Even though he was fucking sentient, like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, he was made to be the same level of intelligence as Data.
So it could be his foil when Data was being a Sherlock. So in 10 forward, Picard is drinking with Guinan. She tells Picard he has a harder argument to make because Data is by definition a machine. She senses that Picard is worried about what's going to happen, but he deflects. Guinan says, on the upside, Maddox could create a whole bunch more Datas. Picard breaks this down and says Maddox is talking about slavery, isn't he? Which is the truth that they've hidden behind, but that's not the issue at all. And he has some crazy epiphany and shit.
And also, like, the truth, like, I mean, that later becomes, like, you know, the actual fact that happens in Picard season 1, which makes you feel like they really didn't learn anything from this episode.
Yeah.
In a sense. It's just like, okay, so no one actually learned anything.
No,
like,
they still need a slave race of robots.
Yeah, they still created for slavery. And, of course, you know, they had the slavery with the Doctor as well. And it's just like... So yeah, we're just ignoring everything, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, man.
I do like how they had to have a reason to include Guinan. Like, I guess like they had Whoopi. They're just like they had to include a scene with her.
Yeah,
in this episode.
This was her first season, I think, and she's like, "Hey, we can have a scene here." Oh, and they're like, "Yeah, how about the one where we talk about slavery?" And she's like, "Really?" All right.
It's like, it's like, God damn it.
Yeah. So back at the trial, Picard says Data is a machine, but that is irrelevant since, including both like the slavery and the not being able to swim thing. I'm glad they didn't include the swimming thing because that would have been like very dog whistly, I think, at that point.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah. So back at the trial, Picard says Data is a machine, but that is irrelevant since we are all machines of a sort, and Data was made by a person, but we are all made by people and their DNA. But are we property? He calls Data to the stand. Picard takes out Data's luggage, which is like, maybe you should respect his personhood too, and that's like his belongings, man. So he brings out his medals and asks why he packed them. Data says he doesn't know what logical purpose they serve, and asks if it's vanity. Picard pulls out a book he gave him, and Data says it's a reminder of friendship and service. Then Picard pulls out the Tasha Yar hologram and asks why Data has it. Data reluctantly admits that they were intimate. And Riker, it gives a shot of Riker, and he just bows his head like he's holding in, oh shit, we Eskimo bros, dog! Like, you know, he's holding it in.
I think that was like Riker being like, damn it, he got to and I didn't.
No, it was Riker going like, dog, you should get tested. I don't know if you can get that stuff, but...
I mean, he did get affected by the poly water, so... Yeah. That's what led to that in the first place.
So, Riker has no further questions. He knows all he needs to know now. He fucked Tasha Yar. So, I mean, come on, like, Riker definitely fucked Tasha Yar. Like, in her, like, goodbye message, she's like, Riker, you're the best. And you know exactly what that... You know Gene Roddenberry was there on set like, no, take two. You got to say it like he fucked you real good. And she's like, really? He's like, do it. Riker, you're the best. Okay, that's a good take. So Picard calls Maddox to the stand. He's getting verified, and Picard is like, yeah, we get it. He's an expat. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like how he makes sure like that Data had his accommodations read, but like any of Maddox's, they just completely gloss over. But I think they should have like had it where it would show like Maddox has like no accommodations comparatively to Data.
Right. Like just like gives his job title and that's it. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Like he has no. It's just like no friends, no known acquaintances, virgin. He's like, yo, stop. Okay, we're good here. No, I want it all read into the record. Incel.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Watches furry
no
porn.
This man has no dick.
So, Picard, where are we? Oh, yeah. So, Picard asks Maddox if Data is not sentient and therefore doesn't deserve the rights of a being. Maddox says he's not sentient. Picard asks what's required for sentience, and Maddox lays it out. He says intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness. Picard asks him to prove to the court that he's sentient. Maddox calls this absurd. Picard asks why he's self-aware. And Picard asks Data what he's doing, and Data gives a full synopsis. Picard says Data seems reasonably self-aware. Maddox pauses, but says it's exceedingly difficult. Picard asks Maddox if he likes Data, and Maddox says he doesn't know, but he admires it. He asks if his life's work in Data could be destroyed, and if he creates many of Data, and if they create many Datas, will they become a race? And will they be judged on how they treat that race? Picard goes full apeshit here and asks if he qualifies for 2 of the 3 criteria for sentience. What will he be if he qualifies for the 3rd? And Maddox fucking shits his pants. The whole courtroom shits their pants. He asks if they're prepared to put a whole race into slavery as a federation. He asks Philippa... he tells Philippa she wanted a chance to make law. Well, here it is, and make a good one. He drops the mic and dunks 4 basketballs right over Maddox. It's fucking sick. He just keeps dunking on him. Like someone keeps on passing him basketballs. He keeps on fucking hooping, just sinking every single one, man. It's pretty sick.
He makes Maddox lay on the ground. He then takes out only his balls out of the fly of his pants, and then just like puts them on Maddox's forehead.
Yeah. Just teabags that boy. He's you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. So Philippa says she's not qualified to answer this question. She says Data is a machine, but he's not the property of Starfleet. She doesn't know, however, if he has a soul, but he needs the freedom to find that out for himself. She finds in favor of the defense.
I feel that's also something that, I feel at this point, I think we've all established that none of us have souls in the Federation. Like, we're beyond like that, like, referring, because basically like, when you say soul, you are just like saying sentience at this point, right. It's just like, for that. And I think they just established like he does have a soul in the way he does have empathy. He cares about people. He has friends. He has like an entire inner life that he has. So
he has ambitions. Like, he wants to grow as a being and like understand more about what it is to be a being.
He has goals. He has interests. Like, to argue that he doesn't have a quote unquote soul is like completely absurd. And yeah, because like, I also feel like during this, like, they only scratch on the surface of who Data is as a person, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's just like, it's like one of those things where it's just like the fact, like this, I mean, I do love this episode, but yeah, it's just like one of these things where I feel like it's almost redundant arguing it, like considering like was established the moment he became a citizen of the Federation and became an officer in Starfleet.
You'd think, but that's not the case. It was good fodder for an episode, but I agree that like the setup is
great
like,
episode though.
Yeah, so Data formally refuses the procedure, but is encouraging and tells Maddox to hit him up when he's ready and knows what the fuck he's doing. So Maddox calls Data remarkable, and Philippa remarks this is the first time that Maddox didn't call him it. Maddox smiles and leaves, which shows some growth starting there, but apparently he learned nothing. So Philippa tells Picard...
he learned nothing because he makes his slaves.
Yes. Philippa tells Picard that sometimes the law does work. As she's walking, Picard stops her and goes, "Philippa, dinner." And it's the most baller way that anyone's ever asked anybody out ever. And she's like, yeah. She's like, "Are you buying?" As though they have money. And he's like, "Of course." And it's, there's going to be no eating. Well, there's going to be eating involved, but it's going to be him eating that snatch.
Picard's just like rock hard, like underneath his tunic. She can be like, "All right, he just gave like a badass speech." So he's just like, he's fully torqued and ready to roll.
Right. He's like, "Philippa, dinner," and he's just pitching a full fucking tent in his uniform. It's just like the fucking like that part that's raised and is like black in like a triangle is just like even more pronounced, and it just like looks like his uniform's in 3D. So Data comes into a room and invites Riker to a function for his happy, hey, you have rights party.
Congratulations, you have rights.
Yeah, congratulations on your human rights party. But Riker says he doesn't deserve to be there because he almost cost Data his life. But Data uses logic and tells Riker that he injured himself to save him, and he will not forget it. And it is a phenomenal Trek moment, the fucking end. What'd you think of this episode?
I love this episode. Yeah, it's just like, it definitely, given the fact that it does have so many firsts in it that are just foundational to next gen to TNG, just makes it even more iconic. And just like, this, and the fact that we fully established Data is a person, and in case there's any ambiguity for I guess anybody who watching at that point who had any sort of like second guessing about that, this fully answers those questions. And but yeah, I think it's like landmark episode. I definitely, if you were to compile just 10 episodes of TNG, if you were to tell somebody that they need to watch it, this would definitely be one of them. And
not the first one, but one of them. Like, you need to establish Data. Not the first one,
but one of them. But just like what, if someone were to ask what Star Trek stands for, and this is definitely like one of them. And yeah, I was like going into this episode, I did learn the things I didn't know before, where Gene Roddenberry is actively trying to keep this episode from being made, but just seems like it does seem like he did have some sort of like a lot of antagonism with like the female writers of Star Trek in those early days, as we saw with like Encounter at Farpoint, DC Fontaine and stuff, and so we kind of see that, and the fact that he was petitioning to keep this episode from being made, and just how wrong he was on that. It's just like show like that it has grown beyond him in a way.
Because it's weird, because he did make, at least like from what I recall, like one good episode that was like a courtroom episode, the one where Kirk's on trial, Court Martial, from I think season 1 of TOS is real good. And so it's like it's a proven formula that works in Star Trek, and so I'm surprised. I mean, maybe I get that he like didn't love the setup, because he's like, no, this has already been resolved. Like, robots have rights. Everyone knows that. Come on, get the fuck out of here. But other than that, it's a good episode. It's well written. I think when he saw the script, he should have been like, all right, this is pretty compelling television.
And it's a clear stand-in for civil rights, because like the best Trek is always like easily like stand in for like real world issues and stuff like that. So it's just like the fact that he probably couldn't understand like what the point of the point of that episode was in a sense. But just like,
and I love especially that you have a scene where you get Picard, a British French white man, giving a lecture on slavery to Guinan.
That was pretty fascinating.
Like, she existed in the antebellum South with Mark Twain, right? Or no, that was probably post antebellum. But still, like the Reconstruction South.
I mean, she.
Still,
but she probably definitely lived through antebellum and stuff, and
exactly. And so she probably knows a thing or two about slavery, probably more than Picard, I'd say. So I love this episode. This is definitely one of my essential TNG episodes. This is probably on my, I don't know if it's on my top 10. It probably is. It's easily top 20 though. It's one of the strongest episodes of season 2 for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It introduces Maddox, which I was glad when they brought him back at first, but then I'm like, what are they doing? And then, also the fact that he didn't grow or learn kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm still gonna make my slave race. I recognize Data as a person, but
and then get unceremoniously murdered by my girlfriend. So I don't know. I'd give this episode a solid like 8.5 out of 10 probably. It's a very strong episode. Very strong.
Oh yeah. It's definitely like great villain. Great execution. I loved every minute of it. I love watching it.
Great cold open.
Always get teary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially at the very end with Riker and Data. I'm like, oh, bros. I kind of wish they had a Geordi scene at the end too, though. Like, because Geordi and Data,
Geordi need to be there.
That's where that shit at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and it's just and this is, barely the second season in. They've already just have such great rapport and camaraderie between the actors and the characters, and it's just like, it's something that's hard to replicate naturally, and like a lot of other TV shows now, where it's just like, you just can't get that sort of like feeling of like knownness that you have, like these characters
the chemistry. Yeah, the chemistry here is is palpable. Even with Philippa and Maddox, like the hate that sees off of Maddox. Like Maddox and Brent Spiner do an especially good job in this episode, and then Philippa and Picard together do an especially good job in this episode as well. Their chemistry is like palpable and searing, and like makes you like feel things. It's very good, very good. Yeah,
shows how far good writing can take you in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Good writing, great acting. Chemistry, minimal sets, whatever. It worked. So, that's that. You got anything else to say on the episode?
No, go watch it if you haven't seen it before. Hopefully you have seen it, and hopefully didn't listen to this episode without having seen it. Listen to, go rewatch it if you haven't. If otherwise, it's fantastic bit of Trek and makes you feel good in a way.
Yeah, it does. Great, and lovely ending here. So. If you like to listen to this podcast, please check us out at patreon.com/dumbidiotbs and like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. I have been Britton.
And I have been Pat.
And this has been Soy Trek. Thanks for listening, Soyagers.
Thanks for checking with us, soy boys, girls, and elderly beans.
Hang dong.
Hang dong.
And shocker.
Checker.
Soy, 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 soy.